Hi, good morning and welcome everybody. I'm Lauren Kennedy. I haven't met some of you yet, hopefully I've met most of you. So today's main topic is choosing new math curriculum for next year and beyond. We're going to do a deeper dive next fall when we have all the materials on campus and be able to touch things and feel things and look at things. But today it's really the rationale for what we chose, why we chose it, the process, and the highlights of the math program moving forward. Then we'll have time for Q&A as well. So I will kind of introduce it, and then Dr. Withey will talk a little more about the program as well, since she was a key person influencing this. So the first question, why a new math program now? The main reason, the driving force, we had nothing as far as low test scores or anything like that we needed to change the program. The main reason is that Saxon is going out of business. They told us a year or two ago, they gave us a couple years to prepare, so we can't get materials anymore. So it's just, that was the impetus for it. So there's nothing else beyond that, but we just can't get materials. So most schools have stopped using Saxon many years ago because they knew this was coming. So again, that's the driver. But also math curriculum has improved and evolved over the years. There's a lot more research on how kids learn. There's a lot of comparisons to other countries with higher math scores in the States. You've probably seen that in the news. It's pretty common. And all the programs now have a lot more tech involved and parent education. Saxon did not keep up with that, unfortunately, either. So we're happy that the programs that we have a lot more things that you can do at home, more technology involved for us to do assessments and things like that. So what was the process? We formed a math committee at the beginning of the school year. There was a teacher from each grade level and several middle school teachers involved, along with the chair of the math department, Rod Baldwin. The committee started with 6 or 7 of us and ended up being almost every teacher involved because it was so important to them. So that was really important that it came from the teachers. So this wasn't the leaders of the school picking a program and putting it on the teachers. We wanted the teachers to really give their opinions since they're the ones using it. So that was super important. So I didn't come into this, and most of you know I come from a background where I've been in a variety of schools, so I didn't come at it as, well, I've used this program, we need to use this. It was very much, here's what's out there, let's look at things, and I wanted them to feel comfortable with the choice. So we did a lot of online research. There's a lot of review sites. We're going to give you that information later if you'd like to take a look. There's some controversy around the online review sites. That some people say some of them are biased and things like that, but when you do a deep dive into the actual review that they've done, which most people don't do, they kind of just look and see is it all green, is it all red, is it all yellow. They kind of use those kind of metrics in the review sites. This program does get all green, which means it's very favorably reviewed. But we did a deeper dive into actually what do they look at, and that's in the data there in this program. Again, is very favorably reviewed by all the websites. We brought in 10 samples. We looked at very broadly. We looked at every kind of math curriculum, from some that are considered kind of controversial to more traditional. So we looked at everything for a few months. We narrowed it down to 5, and then we tested. We used them, we viewed them, and then we did a presentation from the representatives. So they came in, mostly it was online because of COVID, but they did presentations for us where we got to answer all the questions. So that was kind of our process. And which program was chosen? So we chose Harcourt, Houghton Mifflin into math. And we're just going to talk about a few of the reasons of why we chose this program. It is very comprehensive. It has intentionally designed lessons, high quality mathematical tasks, and there's a huge emphasis on problem solving. We felt that was lacking with Saxon, and I've talked about that before. Saxon is great procedurally, and our kids do well with procedures. They do well with our ERB scores. They do less well in problem solving type tasks and contests. Saxon, if you've seen it at home, you kids doing problems, it kind of does one problem at the end, and that's about it. And the problems aren't that rich and meaty. So we're really looking for something that was with a lot more problem solving, so there's a big emphasis on problem solving. It's also developed by the same company as Into Reading, which we adopted successfully in K-1. So I know there's some K-1 parents. You've seen the high quality reading materials that we've improved. This is the notes in the audience. So we really upped the reading program in K-1 this year, and this is the same company. So we liked that. There's a lot of the same features and platforms. And again, the materials are super high quality. And so one of the things we loved about the reading materials, and parents noticed right away, is they replace much older reading materials. They're much more engaging, they're much more rich to look at, and brighter and fresher, and just much more modern, as you would expect, replacing things that are 20 and 30 years old. It's also not a big learning curve for the teachers. That was really important for us. There are programs out there that you might hear about. One kind of well-known program out there is called Singapore Math, so some of you might have heard of that. That involves a huge learning curve for teachers. People say that that's hard to implement. It takes a couple of years. Teachers have to learn how to teach differently. We thought we liked STACS and we liked where our kids were in math, so we wanted something that was fairly similar so that it wouldn't be a huge learning curve for teachers. That's another reason we chose this program. There's a lot of practice and emphasis on procedures. The teachers felt like that was really important. Basic facts are important, fluency and basic fact practice. So a few of the programs we looked at, we just kind of looked at programs and said, wow, there's just not enough practice on these pages. We want more practice, and we want an emphasis on fluency, which Into Math has. We also didn't want to adopt a Common Core. So you've probably heard about Common Core. That's been in the news a lot over the last 10 years. Most of the programs have a Common Core edition, and there's some great features about Common Core, but in general, we didn't feel like we wanted to adopt something that said Common Core, because we feel like we understand teaching of math, and some of the Common Core methods are a little bit controversial. Again, you might have seen this in the news and seen examples of that. So this is a non-Common Core program. It was also top rated, as I mentioned before, by several of the educational reporting agencies. So Dr. Withey, just a little more on the rationale. So I did, again, a deep dive. I joined a Facebook group. I joined some online blogs and things, looking for what do people who use it really like about it. And so a lot of the common rationale was it teaches the kids the why behind the foundational skills, along with critical thinking. I saw that over and over in teacher comments. They understand place value so well. It makes multiplying and dividing so much easier. So place value is like a foundation of math work. And so understanding what the numbers mean is super important. I noticed yesterday I did a test with some of the second graders, and their understanding of place value wasn't as solid as I would like to see it. So I think this is a huge improvement. There's also an emphasis on vocabulary. Kids understand the language of math. So right from kindergarten, the same words and are used over and over. Really important that they learn all those terms, and sums and digits and all of those kind of things, ratios, etc. And then also a bonus is we're seeing a huge improvement in our scores. We don't really need to see that. We're already at the top in our EOP scores, but that's nice to hear as well. So Dr. Withey's going to talk a little bit more about the program. I'm going to turn it over to her.
So we'll start with a little bit more of how they designed the program. It is research-backed, expert designed. So here's only 4 of the authors of this program, but they had a lot of people. If you go into the website, you can see the whole list of authors and read about their backgrounds and their bios. But if you're a math nerd like me, they also had Marilyn Burns come in and consult, and just some of the really big names here in math education were actually part of building this program. So it made me very excited to see who they had on their team. There's a video on straight from the publisher about how is Into Math structured that I'll play for you here.
With Into Math, we were really careful to connect concepts and procedures so that we provided a more coherent approach to teaching and learning mathematics. We did this by beginning with sparking students' learning. We have Spark Your Learning tasks.
I'm going to pause it to let it load for a second.
Then we build understanding from those tasks. So we have lessons that are focused explicitly on building understanding. From there, we continue to spark students' learning and build understanding, but we're more clear about formalizing that understanding. So we step out processes to begin to link to procedures. Once students have stepped out processes, we're no longer sparking their learning, but we're giving them a space to practice and apply the skills they've come to understand. With Into Math,
So what does that actually mean? It means that they're going from really broad understanding of where might I apply this math in the world, or here's a problem, how do you think you should approach it, into the deep dive of here's the actual algorithm, let's give you fluency and practice to get really strong in understanding how to use the algorithm to solve that math problem. So they spark learning and then they move into the here's the solid way to do it. Every day they have a standard lesson format. So they spark that learning and they learn together. It's kind of the we do together process. If you've heard of the I do, you do, or I do, we do, you do process. So that's kind of the model that they use in their daily lesson plan. So teacher instructs, there's lots of hands-on conversation and discourse and really diving deep into the understanding of the why behind math as well as the how. And then they move into, let me check my own learning, let me make sure that I've understood. And then if we look at the yellow part, there's actually a phase for differentiation in each lesson plan. So if the student really needs to be challenged at a higher level, they've already included, here are some ideas of how to take it to the next step before we go. And then we have wrap up and homework. So what the students see in their lesson every day is the same thing that's coming home and being targeted at home. So they have designed it with really rich instructional practices, which is that kind of I do, we do, you do model with the sparking of the learning. But they've also made sure to look at meeting students at their individual levels, so including all of the resources teachers need if they need to go back and reteach because something was beyond a student's level of understanding, as well as for those students who need that extra enrichment, that extra challenge. It's already included there for our teachers. They don't need to go hunt and dig and find extra things to do. They have ready for more options as well as math center options. So if the students finish really quickly, they can go do something extra that has them look at it in a different way, apply it in a more meaningful practice as well. As part of the system, there is really robust assessment that will really help our teachers understand the student's current level before they start any math unit, so that way teachers know if they need to go back and fill in any gaps. It also adds this summative assessment that says, here's where everybody is informed, here's the next step that we should go to. So it helps us more adequately understand where our students are, what they're needing right now, and making sure they're making the progress throughout the year that we hope they be seeing. So it lets us use that data to really drive our instruction, which is an added bonus. There is an online learning platform, and Ms. Kennedy already mentioned that that's the same platform that our kinder and first grade teachers are using for their into reading. So the teaching side of things is really comprehensive and understandable. Our teachers are already in there knowing how to maneuver through their end of things. It allows them access to their teacher workbook, student workbook, and a whole bunch of additional resources in for each lesson. And then this platform will also come home to you as well if there's a parent-facing platform too. There are some really neat special features to IntoMath. One of them is mindset tasks. So thinking about growth mindset that you've heard us mention several times in these parent copies. This resource already is embedded into IntoMath. So it has students stop and think, what are my goals for this unit? What do I hope to learn? Or how might I use this in the future? And reminding them that maybe it seems like it's a hard, daunting task right now, but I'm not there yet, and then I can keep growing and set my goals to build on my learning. So it asks them to get a little bit meta about their learning and be more aware of what they're learning, why they're learning, and where they want to go with it. There's also that embedded focus on the language of math. That's something that you'll hear Mr. Moeller in the upper school talk about. Like, he really thinks it's very important that all students have the language of math, and so they're starting now in kindergarten building this robust vocabulary that they'll continue to use throughout their college career. And so it's already embedded into this program. They have glossaries in the back that say, what does this mean in my own language? And students can add their own definitions to things, or teaching them how to find what the definition is. So there's a great resource in the back, and then embedded in each lesson as well. What are the resources for you guys? That's maybe one of the most important things. So there's 3 different resources off the top of my head that I can think of. There's this online portal, the Family Room. If you need training yourself to to know how to help your students at home. There are videos there for you, math on the spot tutorials. There are also resources that maybe give you some extra practice activities that you can do or a game that you could do to reinforce at home. And then there are module letters at the start of each unit. You'll get a letter home saying, this is what we're going to be tackling. Here's where you can find some more resources, or here's what this map looks like for you. And then we said that we would give you some additional resources to see the reviews behind it, and that's embedded here. So when we send this resource out to you in an email, you'll be able to click these hyperlinks. But this is kind of what are those effective features of teaching math today? What's the current research saying on how we should teach math? As well as what's the research evidence specifically for this math program and how does it score against all of the others? So I think now we're going to open it up to some questions about into math.
One thing I don't think I mentioned either is when we finally got down to choosing the program, I think both of us kind of anticipated that it would maybe be, some teachers would like one program, it could be, and other teachers would like another, it would be a back and forth. It really wasn't. It was, we took our 3 favorite programs, we did a pros and cons list on the whiteboard, everything we liked. And before I could even say anything, one of the teachers in the room, veteran teacher who's been here a long time, looked at it and said, I think we clearly have our winners. So that was really nice. That again was the teacher's choice.